Everyone, welcome back. We're nearing the end of the 2023 AWS End User Computing Innovation Day, but we've got a really good segment here. I am your co-host, Jeff Marushak. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with our Department of Defense Air Force team. We are joined by my partner in crime, good friend, AM. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hey, y'all. I'm AM. I have no clue what crimes Jeff and I are committing today, but
that's the
I
point.
am his
You
partner.
yeah.
So we are here talking end user computing all day, and we got our next guest, Rich. Rich, please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Rich Burkett. I'm a product manager with the End User Computing team. I joined Amazon in 2011 and helped launch the Amazon WorkSpaces web service in 2021.
Okay, Rich, so we're talking WorkSpaces Web. We talked a little bit about WorkSpaces Web earlier with Brett. Looked at it from a security perspective, but I think with you, we're gonna get more into the latest and greatest with WorkSpaces Web and some of the deeper features that we weren't able to cover with Brett. Is that right?
That's right. I think just come in at the high level and maybe talk a little bit more about what WorkSpaces Web is, and then take a look at some demos.
Yeah, let's kick off with that. What is WorkSpaces Web, my friend?
That's a great question. So I've got a slide to help illustrate it. So with WorkSpaces Web, it's essentially a foundational resource is a web portal, which customers create from the AWS console. And from there, they federate their identity provider, so SAML 2.0 providers like Okta or Ping, or AWS IAM Identity Center can be used to manage your users and enable access. We also enable customers to create a connection to their VPC. What happens is during a session, an ENI is created, and then that traffic flows through the VPC to the internet or to websites that are in AWS or on the internet.
It's a great use case for internal websites, things like internal wikis, or if I've got something like SharePoint running in my VPC, give people access to that.
And that's typical of a service inserting an ENI into your selected VPC to allow that access. So
that's right.
Cool.
Yep. So the remaining parts of the service are essentially the browser and the user settings. So the user settings are things like whether or not the user can print or can access the file transfer during the session. And then the browser settings are, the name, any IP controls that you'd like to configure, and then things like your company policy enforcement. So custom enterprise policies applied to every session.
Proxy settings, maybe
all that.
Something like that. What about bookmarks?
That's another one. So bookmarks are actually organized under the Chrome Enterprise policy. They show up on the screen as a managed bookmark. So every user gets the same set of bookmarks.
Oh, cool. All right. Sweet.
And then last, we've got the monitoring for the service. This is stuff like CloudWatch for service availability, CloudTrail for administrator changes, and then custom user access logging that covers user visits during the session.
Very nice. Very nice.
What about web traffic logs?
That's under our user access logging.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Great. So what's next, Rich? After all of those, I'm sure you've got some demos too that you're going to show us later on about some of these things, right? What out of these, what are we going to hit on the most?
Yeah. So the other piece we didn't cover, so WorkSpaces Web essentially streams that content to users in their existing web browsers. I'm sure you guys talked about this a lot with Brett.
An encrypted thing of pixels.
Yeah.
And so while you're describing this looks like it could be a desktop, but with WorkSpaces Web, this is just a browser. So all these things, getting those options with just a browser, not a whole entire desktop or machine.
That's correct. Yeah, and actually under the covers, we're running a customized SE Linux instance where essentially the user has the most up-to-date version of the Chrome browser. It's essentially the browser everyone's using every day, and that is built for custom SaaS applications. And essentially, we're managing all the provisioning and automatic updates for that image and for the browser itself.
Quick question. What if I wanted to download something? Where would that go?
Yeah, so the session itself, you have access to the file system on the session if the administrators configured that access.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Okay, so you were starting off with what is WorkSpaces Web, and so it sounds like we've established that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you want to talk about a little bit maybe around some of the customer use cases? We talked briefly with Brett about that, what people are doing with it, that type of thing.
Yeah, like we were thinking, like if you know you're going to a funny website or you're not sure, you want a secure browser, but it sounds like maybe even as instead of using a VPN for certain use cases.
Yeah, or specific industries, right, that have this need.
Absolutely. So that's my next slide. So essentially, there's three main use cases we see with customers. The first is that you've got either a legacy internal site or a collection of SaaS applications that you typically provide some other access method for. This could be things like procuring devices and installing VPN clients and distributing those or shipping those to users when essentially all they need is the browser to get to that website.
And that's a lot of effort and work to do all that.
Absolutely. And there's also a lot of cost that comes with that.
Yeah.
The second is for, so we talk to a lot of customers who have, they have employee laptops or devices that have access to company content, but there's pent-up demand to, if you're using a different device or you're traveling or you're on, grandma's computer, for example, just to be able to log in and quickly respond to an email.
Well, some corporations, if you have to leave the country, you're not allowed to take your corporate laptop out of the country. So
that's right.
Yeah, perfect use case.
And then the last would be safe.
Hopefully your grandma's out of the country and you can use her computer.
Yeah, maybe.
Only when she's traveling.
Yes.
I'm the CISO. I can do whatever I want.
Well, that's true. Well, no, we've left that startup segment. Now we're
sorry.
not. Yeah, now we're back to just Jeff and AM. We lost all our powers.
Yeah, in fact, it was Brett we were talking to at the end after a session. I was like, well, it sounds like it's sort of like an inherent VPN to have that sequestered, isolated browser. And we say that when we just got done talking about how that is such a large attack vector. So I can see where the two are colliding here and making sense.
Yep. And that's actually a big piece of the story as well, which is the safe browsing from lockdown networks. A lot of customers, especially those in highly regulated industry like finance or healthcare, have users that don't have access to the internet, where this is sort of a table stake to get things done in the modern workspace. So giving them a secure terminal to access, personal browsing or research competitor tools or access SaaS applications on the web de-risks that connection.
What are some of the admin controls that I have access to when I'm setting this up to? Can I do like allow deny lists for domains, things like that, what you would expect?
Yeah, so we actually support Chrome's enterprise policies, which is over
great.
300 tools that are built into Chrome. And you can create a custom statement, or you can use our console to use the UI to format some of the most commonly used ones. So these are things like bookmarks or the allow and deny list for URLs, or enabling or disabling things like private browsing or history deletion.
Very cool, very cool. So now with what you've got here, I know we've got a couple demos to get through, which is awesome. You've brought multiple demos. Can you believe multiple demos over here?
Well, we hardly had any demos this morning, so I'm excited for more than one demo. We just got done with a really good demo in our previous segment. So let's see.
Are we talking sign in with this and SAML authorization? You mentioned ping and Okta earlier.
We are. So one of the biggest challenges with a non-persistent browser experience is that every time the user signs in, you have to establish that identity on the box, right? So they have to go to that website and then sign in again if you're using the same identity provider.
Yeah.
So I've got a video here. I'm going to show you what essentially the world looks like without this new feature that we just released, which is called the extension for single sign-on.
Okay.
So here you can see our user is signing into WorkSpaces Web. They're going to punch in their credentials. We've sped things up so we don't have to wait, but this does take 30 to 45 seconds in order to establish that connection. And then once you're in the session.
And when you just signed in, you probably used your corporate username and password. So why should you have to put that in again? It sounds like this is going to help us there.
Well, you logged into the actual WorkSpaces web session, and then now you're logging into the application that you're accessing in WorkSpaces web, right?
Which in this case is protected by Okta. So you can see the user just was on this page, signed in, and now they're on the same page. And so essentially customers have been asking for a better user experience when it comes to this level of authentication. So we kicked around some ideas, and with browsers and websites, customers are essentially looking for a way to pass the domain cookie to that remote session. And so we're going to jump here into the next demo. So here we're signing in again, entering that username and password. And this time, the portal is configured with the extension for single sign-on. And so here, the web client is going to detect this web portal is enabled for single sign-on.
Okay.
The browser the local browser, the one the user is using to sign in, is going to be asked to go to the Chrome store, and with a couple clicks, they're going to go there and install that extension. This extension will run on the local browser, and what it will do is it will grab a list of cookies that's been assigned by the IT administrator and then transfer those to the Workspaces web session. So here, your user signed in with Okta once. We've installed the extension, and now we're launching the session, and you can see that essentially you don't have that second sign-in experience. You're already logged into Okta. So if you set the Okta jump page, which has all your applications there that are protected by Okta, you essentially get single sign-on to all those different apps.
Yeah, and you said something that was really cool to hear, that your admins get to choose what cookies it can pull, that client can pull, based on your Workspaces web instance, which was based on your username and password that you signed in with. So that's great. So it's not automatically going to grab everything, just what your IT admins set up for this.
Absolutely, and that's actually the last thing I'd like to show you with this demo is the administrator experience. Part of the Workspaces web ethos is to make things super simple, essentially set it and forget it. So here in the console, you've got a Workspaces web portal. You go to the user setting page, enable this by setting it to allowed, and then enter the domains you want to add for your essentially your domain list. That's it. Once you do that, you save the page, and then every user that signs in will be asked to go and grab the extension. Users can choose not to install it. There's no requirement to do so, but if they choose to do that, they get the benefits of single sign-on.
That's great. So installed in a way that users are familiar with, right? Just through a Chrome extension, go out and get it, and then I don't have to keep signing in over and over.
That's
I'm
right.
sure customers were very excited when you all launched this.
Yeah, and if you switch browsers or you switch devices, it'll just ask you to install the extension again.
Okay, speaking of devices, right? I think our next demo up is more about the types of controls that we have access to. Is that right?
That's right.
Rich?
So we talked about supporting any device, but what if you have a specific device you want to support, and you don't want wide access for Workspaces web? And so that's where IP access controls comes in. With this feature, you can control access to trusted devices or trusted networks. And so here, as you can see on the screen, I am browsing. I'm on my favorite website. And then from there, I'm going to go to my Workspaces web portal. Sorry. There we go. And you can see that I tried to go to the portal from a website where I wasn't on a trusted device, and access was denied. So I don't even get the chance to sign in or anything like that. I'll give you another look at this experience. So assuming I'm in a session, so here I'm in a live session on a trusted network.
This looks like Slack.
Yep, I'm on Slack. And then from there, I'm off screen. I've turned off my VPN. I'm no longer on a trusted network, and it detects that I'm no longer there, and then sends me essentially to authenticate again. So I can't jump back on until I get back onto the trusted network.
Very nice. And as the admin, I essentially have control over which IP addresses that I add to
Now,
this.
you just demoed that with a VPN, but that could just mean, a VPN was simulating a corporate network. So that could say that only allow access if you're on the corporate network. So in a building, in a corporate building or in a corporate setting, all of a sudden you leave the parking lot, your IP changes, then it would stop that.
Yep, and actually that's another part of the demo that we should take a look at. So here I'm in the AWS console, and you can actually use our IP access control group as if it was a top-level resource, much like a web portal. So I don't even have to do this inline. I can just go and create an IP access group, which can then be applied to multiple web portals. So to do so is pretty simple, just like we showed with the extension list. You add a name, you can add a description, and then you essentially add the IPs or the range. You can add up to 100 rules per group.
Those are just CIDR ranges.
Exactly.
Yep.
Again, save that, and then you can either add it to your existing portals or add it when you're creating a new portal in line.
You could probably add allow if on this or not allow if on this. Probably it's up to you.
Yep.
That's great.
Well, Rich, I also wanted to highlight another feature that I had heard about too, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more. As Jeff knows, I'm big on automation. Automate the boring stuff, and one of the boring stuff to me is setting this stuff up. I heard y'all have some CloudFormation support too that you just launched.
That's right. I don't have a great demo for the CloudFormation support, but if you've watched this long, you're probably familiar with CloudFormation. Essentially, if you go to the CloudFormation user guide, Workspaces Web is listed there as a service and can walk you through all of the different parameters you need to get up and running quickly.
Very nice. Gives you the option to use infrastructure as code now to provision out Workspaces Web. Gotta love that. So we focused a lot on the admin experience. What about me as the user of Workspaces Web? What does it look like when I actually get into one of these sessions? What do I have available to me?
Yeah. So give me 1 second here. All right. So this is actually what a Workspaces Web session looks
Are
like.
we in a session right now, Rich?
That's it.
Wow. We're already there, Jeff. Look at that.
And I see the toolbar, the black toolbar above.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we actually just rewrote the session experience kind of from end to end. So if you haven't seen the service in a while, it may look a little different. But the banner feature here is essentially that the toolbar is essentially now a floating resource, and you can. Two of the best features are you can actually minimize it, and then also you can move it during the session. So if you don't like it at the top, you can just drag it. Oh, sorry. You can.
Touchpad problems. I
Yep.
understand. It's all good. There
You
you
can
go.
drag it across the page and free up some space. So along with that, we've actually got a ton of new features in this release. So things like a profile pane where you can take a look
Whoa,
at your existing
okay.
metrics. You can send us feedback if you see things you like or don't like. You can also grab the session ID with one click and include it in that mail. We've got a help menu for some frequently asked questions, and then we also have a tutorial for that gets spun up if you're visiting a session for the first time. It'll walk you through all the different toolbar functionality.
Yeah, we didn't get to walk through the toolbar with Brett, so I was really really interested in what was there. So this is really cool. Number one, you showed me a dashboard with metrics. I'm enamored already. But what about like interacting with the actual device that I'm on, right? What exists there? We mentioned already, I think, some features like turning on microphone and video. You want to walk through some of that with us?
Yeah, so with the toolbar, it gives you the ability to toggle the microphone on and off. You can also set the light or the dark theme depending on your
You already had
preferences.
it in the right choice.
Exactly, right. But if your administrator has configured, you can actually transfer files back and forth between the session. So the flow here would be you're on a website, you download a file, and then you come to the file manager and
This is what
transfer
you
to your local
asked.
device.
Gotcha.
You can also do the reverse. You can add files to the session and then apply them to things like an email or a file system that's available in the browser.
Or some sweet GIFs that I need to send Jeff over Slack that are on my machine, right? Like,
That's right.
That's the use case that you were thinking of when you built this, right?
Definitely.
Okay, was
Number
enabling
one use case.
me to send GIFs over Slack to Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the important thing, make sure the viewers realize that this is a Workspaces web browser.
It's turtles all the
It
way
happens to be looking at Slack, which is, we all use Slack in a web browser anyway. But the machine actually running this browser is a secured Linux machine that's behind the scenes. We don't have anything to do with it. But yet, in case we were to go to a funny website or a redirection, maybe in a message that AM sends us in Slack, we click on that link and it takes us to some questionable place. We don't have to worry about the machine that it's running on because it's this hard Linux machine behind the scenes.
Those links that I send you are really important, Jeff, and they're all about disclosure of alien technology that is imminent. And you refuse to click on them because I have put trackers in them, and I know you haven't clicked on them.
Click these links, and it takes me to the stars.
That's wow. Yeah. Okay, you left me speechless. Now, Rich. So we've got this experience here. You've revamped the session space. I love it all. I think it looks great.
And I think a reoccurring theme throughout today was how we can still be secure with going to multiple different VDI and end user compute options. And it's just nice to see how hardened this is in an option for a very high attack vectored place, the internet and the browser.
Yeah, for sure. What about some of the keyboard commands and things like that? Are these supported in
Yeah.
Workspaces Web?
So part of our last update to the session experience was to make sure that all that stuff happened behind the scenes and that a user didn't have to think. So what happens is, even though it's a Linux computer on the other side, it'll map the keyboard commands from whatever device you're on. If you're using a Windows computer or a Mac computer, you don't have to go in and manually set the command key or anything like that.
Wow. That's phenomenal. I mean, like, as somebody who I'm obviously a Mac user, as you could tell, just RDPing into a session, like running on EC2, and every time I hit Command C, doesn't work, right? Like, that's cool. That's really cool that y'all invested the time and did that.
We've also done some other stuff, like make it so that the the additional monitor launches with one click, and some other under the cover improvements as well.
Very
Cool.
nice.
So I've asked this question a bunch of times today. Tell us about pricing.
Yeah, you
for
were all
Workspaces
about
Web.
the pricing today, aren't you?
And so Workspaces web pricing, I've got a slide to illustrate kind of how that looks. So it's essentially pay as you go and charging for a monthly active user. So here, this fun graph I've got essentially walks you through a 4-month consumption pattern, starting with 30 active users the first month. Each individual user is being charged at $7 a month for up to 200 hours. So that first month, you're going to run $210. But then the second month, if you only have one user, meaning 29 other users are on vacation, they don't sign in, essentially your charge would only be $7. So you can see here, it's really only charging you for what you use. There's no commitments, there's no seats or agreements or contracts. And then if you scale up in the next month, you'll only be charged for what you use, and then obviously the following month be charged from there. So our prices do vary by region, but in our US East 1 and US West 2, it's $7 a monthly active user for up to 200 hours, and then for each additional hour, the charge is 3.5 cents.
Cool.
And Rich, are there any kind of customer use cases or studies or things that you've worked on and really stuck out to you as like this was a great usage of Workspaces Web?
Yeah, so I think Brett talked about some of these on his, so please, if I'm repeating them, just let me know. But one of our customers, they have essentially support agents that are located across the country, and they're providing financial services. So users are calling in to check their balance or make changes. Agents are walking these users through that and then making changes on the back end. But all this is happening through a homegrown website they call their admin portal. So previously in the past, they were securing devices, adding VPN, adding management software, and then distributing those devices to users. The whole process would take about a week to get somebody on board.
Seems like overkill for a website, right?
Absolutely, especially as they built out more functionality in the website. So every time they had a new feature, it's just making the website more powerful.
Yeah. The moment any PII travels on a wire, then that is under the umbrella of some sort of compliance program. And you said VPN. That means if that data is coming to this machine, every step of the way has to be guarded. So it sounds like an encrypted pixels in a app stream or Workspaces web could help with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so they went from about a week of a provisioning cycle down to minutes. You can just essentially support anybody on any laptop or desktop with a URL.
Week, 2 minutes.
And with the global AWS kind of availability, you mentioned support. You can do a follow the sun type of model and have Workspaces for Web in the different regions as the sun is up. So I can see how that could be very beneficial.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Rich already has availability up too. These are the regions.
Looks like my slide broke, but anyways, my slide had should have shown that we're currently available in 10 regions there. So you've got a list on the right-hand side.
Great.
Very nice. Very nice, Rich. Okay, so we're running short on time here. We've learned a lot, I have at least, about Workspaces Web. What's next? What do I do next if I'm interested and I want to get started?
Yeah, so if you're if you'd like to learn more, you could reach out to your AWS sales representative, or you can always reach out to us directly at workspacesweb@amazon.com. You can check out our site at aws.amazon.com/workspaces/web.
Yeah, and if you have a dedicated AWS account team and maybe you have a dedicated SA, reach out to them and they could put the parties together, maybe bring in a specialist for Workspaces Web and get you the help you need, and maybe even figure out a new way, a new use case for Workspace Web. Because that's what's really interesting. When you hear the typical use case, you hear the reason why the service was created. And then after a while, you hear all these new ideas of how customers are using it. That's the best.
Yeah, and we heard from Brett earlier, too, about the roadmap. But if you're already an existing Workspaces Web customer, I'm sure reaching out on that email alias as well.
Absolutely.
If you've got feature requests, things that you want added to the service.
Yeah, it's
welcomed.
Still day one, and we're eager to hear from customers. We've got a lot in the pipeline as well, so excited to get some new features out before the end of the year.
All right. We'll be happy to cover those here on AWS On Air whenever you get those launched, I'm sure. So for the rest of you, we are nearing the end of End User Computing Innovation Day. But stay tuned, because we've got a few more sessions left. We've got some sign-offs to do, and we hope to see you there.